Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe with notifications on.
Now is children and sex, when to have that conversation with your youngsters. Couldn't have a better guest than Carol Weston. She's the Girls' Life Advice columnist since 1994, and she's also the author of many books, including Girl Talk. So when and how does a parent decide that I have to talk to Johnny or Mary about sex?
I think if you've waited a really long time and your kids are now suddenly 11 and 12 and it's never come up, you better start talking, because the media is talking to kids loud and clear. But it's easier if you just answer their questions as they arise. And sometimes little kids will say, how do babies happen? And you can say, Mommy and Daddy make love, or parents make love. And that can buy you a couple years. Kids don't always want all the details. They just want their questions answered.
What about sex education in school? Because I think parents opt out of that conversation because they think they'll learn it in school.
Sex ed in schools is a great idea, but it doesn't always do the job. We know that too many teenagers, 1 million per year nearly, are getting pregnant, and 95% of Americans have sex before they get married. So just saying to a kid, don't have sex until you get married, nowadays, with late marriages, won't work. So you can't just sit back and know that it's getting taken care of at school.
They're doing contraception or they're doing abstinence, and therein lies a little bit of a problem, which it's an opportunity for the parent to step in.
Absolutely. I think the parent's message has to be sex too soon is a disaster. You don't want to have sex too soon. You might think that everyone's doing it, but believe me, everybody is not doing it. So having somebody, even if it's mom or dad, saying, slow down, is going to be okay, don't be in a hurry, and especially for girls, don't feel pressured.
But they are pressured. They're pressured by their peers. We're hearing of 9-year-olds having oral sex.
Any 9-year-old who's having any kind of sex is a girl who's been coerced and is a victim. A 9-year-old is not happily performing oral sex on somebody. So really, again, the parents have to say, wow, that's a troubled girl, if they hear a story about that. Or if you're watching TV with your kid and there's something a little racy, you can say to maybe an older teen, where's the birth control? Or what's the rush? Or I can't believe she made that decision. You can't say, are your friends having sex? Or are you having sex? But you can talk about characters on TV. And if you do it in the right way so that you're allowed to sit on the sofa next to your teenage child and not kind of kicked out, then you can keep an ongoing dialogue. It's not the talk, it's the ongoing conversation.
In that conversation, does dad talk to the boys and mom talk to the girls?
Ideally, but not everyone's got the mom and dad at home. And sometimes if you realize, wow, I just can't do this, then you assign Aunt Mary, who's really cool, or your neighbor or your neighbor's mom. But you can also say, wow, this is an awkward conversation, but here we go. Sometimes girls write me because of my column at Girls' Life and say, I want to talk to my mom and dad about sex and I don't know how. And I tell them, say, I know this is awkward, but I have a lot of questions. If whether the parent or the child starts the conversation saying, I know this is awkward, but you're already halfway there, because then you can go ahead and talk about it.
What's extraordinary, because you're talking about the 21st century, there are so many parents now who still find any approach to that awkward, and they prefer not to have it.
Well, then they better at least talk about birth control. They don't have to be giving their kids sex tips. What they do need to give their
Let's hope
kids,
not.
in fact, that's probably a bad idea, but eventually you want your child to be a sexual human being. You want grandkids, right? So what we need to do is be a little less scared of the whole subject. That doesn't mean the parents have to talk about the nuts and bolts.
So stay present in the conversation.
Stay present. If they ask you, what is this condom? You might be able to say, oh, it's a condom. Adult men use that. If you're talking to an 8-year-old, you don't have to do a whole information dump about sexual experience. Do little by little. Answer their questions, and that's often all they need.
Carol Weston, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
So how do you know if your kid's having sex? Well, you don't. I've talked to a lot of parents and kid dyads, and the parents very rarely know exactly what their kid is doing. Sometimes there'll be clear indications, like a used condom that you'll find in their bedroom. Okay, so your kid's probably having sex. But without some kind of clear indication like that, most parents just don't know. And they think they know, but they don't. And really accepting the fact that you don't know is important. So really, rather than talking to your kid about what kind of sexual activity your kid is engaging in, it's much more informative to ask your kid about what kind of sexual activity their friends are engaging in. First of all, because most kids tend to go about with their peers in terms of how sexually active they are. And they're much more likely to be honest about their friends' sexual activity than they are about their own sexual activity. And, if their friends are having sex, it's best for them to be educated on it, whether or not they are.